Welcome to the Mindset Huddle Podcast, where sports and mental health meet. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Carruthers and Andrew Grantz.
My name's Chris Carruthers, as you know. Wanted to hop onto a space where we can talk a little bit about sports, talk a little bit about mental health. Not wearing my coaching polo here, but have the coaching background and wanted it to be casual, so hats backwards today. You know what I mean? So, um, just kind of hoping those who fall upon this recording video, potentially podcast, here, just kind of feel like they have a sense of, you know, understanding about some of the things athletes might be going through. But with that being said, please, Andrew, introduce yourself.
Yeah. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. My name's Andrew Grantz. I now work for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes in Southeast Indiana, doing coaches ministry. I also have a mental training business, Andrew Grantz Mindset Solutions. So I'm a certified mental performance coach. And before those things, I was a basketball coach for 17 years. I was a high school head coach, college assistant coach at some small colleges, kind of all over the country, and moved a lot. And then before that was a college golfer. So a lot of sports in my background, but have just really enjoyed, even from the time that I was 16, like sports psychology books and just like the mental side of the game. And so it's cool because now with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, I've been able to marry sports and the mental side and also the spiritual side, which has always been a big part for me. And so it's cool to kind of see all that come full circle now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember those days, seeing you on the sideline at Jeff High, thinking, man, he's got a really good team. He's got some athletes. We
Yeah, you
have
say that and you still beat us. So
no, but also in your spare time, you do some broadcasting for a local what do you call Glycon? Local
I
news?
guess it would be local media company.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like them a lot. Chris Hubler, I believe is his name.
Labar,
Um, Say that again.
Chris Labar.
Ah, that's what it
Yeah.
is. I don't know where I got that from.
There is another guy though that I think it's your Providence. That's a Providence name.
It might be. It
There
might
you
be. But no, they do a good job over there representing,
go.
kind of southern area sports here in Indiana and in Kentucky. Um, well, I don't want to prolong anything, but I do want you to kind of tell us your story and your kind of how you mentioned, being involved in collegiate sports. Kind of walk us through life in middle school,
Yep.
kind of towards the end of middle school, high school. I know there's a major event that happened,
Mhm.
but just kind of walk us through that and how
Yeah.
you handled stuff.
Yeah. So, man, yeah, where to start with that? So, no, I did, growing up, I was so blessed, had awesome mom and dad that, instilled, a faith foundation in me. That was just, I can't thank them enough for what they did. But fast forward to kind of finishing up middle school and getting into high school. Just home life started to break down a little bit. Mom and dad's marriage wasn't the best. My mom started heading down some paths, not making the best decisions, and so had a lot of home turmoil that, probably not get into it too much today, but if anybody listening is ever wanting to reach out and kind of find out more of my story with that, I'd be happy to share with them. But essentially,
just sent you an email, by the way. I want to hear about it.
yeah, it's interesting story. But essentially, it culminated in summer going into my junior year of high school. My mom passed away in a car accident, and middle of the night, 4 a.m. Around there, she got in an accident. So that kind of tells you, she was out, middle of the night, kind of what was going on a little bit at the time. But yeah, got woken up on a Sunday morning, Father's Day. I was actually spending the night at my grandparents' house because I was, getting out of the home a little bit. And my dad woke me up and, just told me that my mom had passed away in a car accident. And like that, just that whole time, was very difficult. I'll never forget going to the funeral home and seeing her body for the first time. And that's the only time in my life that I literally just had so much emotion I couldn't even stand. I fell to the ground. Like I didn't have the power to hold myself up. I was so over, like it just smacked me. It just, like, it was real for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And so just an emotional, heavy time in my life. But I would also say, and people think I'm crazy when I say this, it was one of the best times in my life. And they're like, how could that be a good time? I cannot just thank God and thank our community and thank my family enough for how much they rallied around our family. Like, I'll never forget, and this is one of the reasons I love sports and I love coaches. I'll never forget being at the funeral home and walking around the corner, and like the line. My mom was a teacher, so she just affected so many lives and had so many students and parents showing up. But I walked around the corner, the line's like out the building, and there is my high school golf coach with our high school golf team, and they're in full golf uniform, matching head to toe, that came to support me. And like, that image is still seared in my brain. And I was like, that's what sports is. Like, that's what a team is. Like, those are my teammates. And in an individual sport, right? In golf, in an individual sport, but they're still my teammates.
Right.
And like, that had a huge impact on me. And then just kind of seeing what sports meant after that. So that was a big big moment in my life. The hard part, anytime that you go through any kind of traumatic experience like that, is not necessarily, obviously the moment that you're going through it, but it's like a year later or 6 months later when people have to get back to their everyday lives.
Right.
And, and not that we didn't feel the love and support and things like that, but, people have to go on, you have to move on with life. And then all of a sudden, that, not that the support's not there, but it's there in a very different way, and it's not around as much. And then a couple of years later, I actually, me personally, I started when I was in college, started struggling with some anxiety and things like that. And just thinking about like my mom's car accident and how fragile life is and that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget being 21 years old, driving across the Sherman-Minton Bridge from New Albany. I was going over to class at U of L. I was in college at the time, and just had a full-on panic attack, thinking to myself, like, the thought running through my mind was like, man, like I'm driving over this bridge, and how easy it would be that, something catastrophic happened to where like the car go off the bridge or something like that. And I freaked out so much. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't catch my breath. I was literally driving 15 miles per hour on an interstate because I was so freaked out about it. And I had to call my godmother that night from campus. And I was like, hey, I need you to come either get me or like follow me home, because I don't think I can make it back over, because the anxiety was like so bad.
Yeah.
And so it's just just walking through that process of that at a young age. And for me at that time, what was my saving grace was basketball. I started getting into coaching, And when the anxious thoughts came into my head, I could immediately be like, well, what play would I run in this situation?
Yeah.
If I'm a head coach one day, let's prepare for like the interview. What questions are they going to ask? Like, what defense would I run? And I just like coaching basketball was my distraction
Yeah.
from the anxiety. And so, anyway, so that's kind of the gist of my story, my kind of traumatic experience at 16. And it was just that wasn't only it. Like after that happened with my mom a year later, I had my golf coach was no longer my coach. We brought a new coach in, and then our new coach that we had for 3 months, he passed away from a heart attack. And so it was just death and traumatic experiences at 16, 17 years old, and all that culminated to having some anxiety and panic attacks, once I got a little bit older and realized like how fragile life can be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's I appreciate you sharing that. Um it's interesting to see, like, and we'll eventually get into the mental health aspect and how important it is to take care of your mental health, but just like, how you live through something, and then you're sitting there thinking, man, this is cool. And then yeah, it takes some time before that trauma like begins to like wear its name around you. And
Yeah.
and I know that I hate to bring this up, but uh also glad to bring it up as well. No, I was talking to Kevin Miller, the coach, Ryan Miller's brother, shortly after we won state, and we were just talking about like, you reach this high pinnacle of like, this is it. This is like the peak of life in the coaching world. And then it's like you get home on the bus ride, or you wake up the next day and you're like, so what now? You know what I mean? Like it's and he was just talking about how there's this element of like depression, or like an element of like I, I mean, postpartum depression is a thing,
Yeah.
just kind of that you experience such a great high, and then you come back to reality, and then it's like, I'm still the same person. I still have dirty laundry over here that I need to put away. I still have a dish, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you instantly become just so engulfed in what you left behind, metaphorically speaking, to go towards that euphoria.
Yeah.
Um, and then just like I said, I wrote down just managing trauma, just hearing your story, like all of that happened when you were 14, 15, 16, your late teens, and then it started to manifest later on, you know
Mm.
what I mean? Like as you're in college, so 19, 20, 21, as and if there's anyone who knows about the Second Street Bridge, you know, um, that's a very anxiety stricken two roads or two lanes to travel, but
Yeah.
I think it's, something I hope that people keep in mind is just that element of, while you go through a traumatic experience, sometimes it doesn't always manifest itself immediately. It takes that 2, 3, 4, 10 years to hit.
Yeah.
And usually when you're at your most vulnerable. Um, how did you how did you what were some things you mentioned already? Just kind of basketball.
Yeah.
But I'd be, for people who are watching or who are listening, I think I'd be interested to hear like from the time the anxiety attacks happen to the time you figured out a way to cope with them. How
Yeah.
long was that? And how did you get to where you got to?
So, it's kind of a twofold answer with that. One, would be So I had that panic attack. I started having a couple more kind of happening. I'd say throughout the next couple of days. Honestly, the best thing that happened for me is I was having a panic attack here in New Albany where I was living. I wasn't far from my dad's house, and I drove over to my dad's house, and I just was trying to like walk through him with that, and basically I made the comment to him. Um, I don't know if I can beat this. And I've never seen an anger in my father that I saw in that moment. And I will tell you, I was more afraid of him than I was the panic attack
Right.
because, I mean, man, he got right in my face and he was like, I didn't raise a coward. I didn't raise somebody that said they can't do something.
Mm.
And that, like, that is exactly what I needed in that moment. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right, like, we're moving forward.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we want to kind of dwell and talk through it and things like that. And you see like the old movies where they like smack you and they're like, snap out of it. Like sometimes
Yeah.
we just need that,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
sometimes we don't need, we need listening ears and things like that. But sometimes we need somebody just to be like, snap out of it. Like you're
Mhm.
better than this.
Mhm.
And man, that's exactly what I needed that moment. So then I was like, all right, I'm gonna. So I went back to see my counselor, my therapist that I worked with when I was 16, 17 years old through my mom's accident. So I was like, I need to get back into there.
Mhm.
I need to address that. I did get on some anxiety medication. I will say my thought process going into that was that I didn't want to rely on medication. I was like, I
Yeah.
viewed it as this is a temporary. I want to do this to help calm my nerves as I go through the therapy.
Mhm.
But here in a month or two, I want to start like weaning off of it. It was also made very clear to me not to just stop it right away. That's dangerous, but to wean off of it. And so that helped because I did not want to be relying on it. So those two things. And then I got really, really good at distracting myself with basketball. Like that was the thing that I was like, I mean, literally driving up the knobs, I would get the anxiousness. For some reason, it was like driving with heights. I don't know why. I don't know what that is associated with. But it's definitely driving because that's associated with my mom and her
Yeah.
accident.
Yeah.
And but I'd start to get anxious, and then right away I'd be like, all right, well, what about like this play and like how would I do this scouting report? And I just went all in on basketball, and I was like, basketball will be this thing that saves me from the anxiety. And
Yeah.
so in that moment, that was my savior. I would come to find out many years later that is only going to get you so far, and
Right.
sports
Right.
can't save you because my we could talk about this if you want, but basically my panic attacks came back about 10 years later, and I thought I
Hmm.
was done. I thought I was done with them, and then all of a sudden they started coming back, and
That's
uh,
so
and
interesting.
yeah, and the basketball wasn't working anymore.
It's just I it's there's such a like a you know an area where like unless you experience a panic attack you don't really know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't maybe I have, maybe I haven't, maybe I have or maybe I haven't, like I just said, but yeah, it's interesting to hear like just and I wonder how many people out there like when you think you've gotten over them, they hit you in a new way from the right side, a right hook versus their. I think
Yeah.
it's interesting um just how there's always that it's always a battle, man. It really always is, and I hope, we'll get into some more mental health stuff here in a little bit. We just happen to get fixated on a little bit about you and some things that I think that are important to hear. You mentioned getting on medication for anxiety. Like that's huge. That's something that's kind of taboo these days where it's like, oh, don't get medicated. Yeah, I obviously think you had the right mindset not become reliant on it. But I'm no professional expert, but just I mean that's when especially in the African American community, they avoid certain things just because of the stigma that's associated with them. It's always, just pray to God, God will take care of it. Raise your hands up in church now. But just having that understanding of not wanting to be reliant on it and not, is huge. It's just I again, we could probably sit here and talk about just the science of panic attacks or anxiety attacks for so long. It's I don't know. I'm just so perplexed over here. Um, but I do want to move into kind of the core conversation. So we mentioned a little bit, obviously the here recently this area saw a traumatic passing of a local athlete, and the manner of death was kind of self-inflicted. Um, and I want to kind of jump into this conversation of, as an athlete, you mentioned, we both come from athletic backgrounds.
Mhm.
Um, Identity versus performance, where do
Yeah.
people begin typing their identity to performance, and what happens when performance drops? What's your thoughts?
Well, just from my personal story, and this will paint the picture for it. So we were down in, I was coaching in Florida at Fort Myers High School, and we went to our church there. And my wife and I went through this 12-week program they put on. It was really cool. It's called Freedom. And the very first week, the question was, I am blank. And man, I wrote down like with so much pride and so quickly that I am a coach. Like if you would have asked me, like, who am I? Like that is number one. And basically through the 12 weeks, I learned that was wrong. But thank God that I did. Um, because sports are what we do. It's not who we are. That's one of the biggest things. Like, so I mentioned earlier that I'm certified mental performance coach. I've worked with over 1,000 athletes, training mindset. And some of the most common things that I hear is statements like, I'm a loser. And it's like, well, no, you lost a game, but you're not a loser.
Mhm.
I'm terrible at this sport. Well, no, maybe you can't do this skill, but it doesn't mean that you personally are terrible. And I think sometimes that we get so wrapped up in thinking that what we do is who we are,
Mhm.
and that's dangerous, because we are so much more. I believe God created us to be so much more than just what we do,
Yeah.
and so when we reframe it that way, that it gives us, because look, if we say I lost a game, well, how do we fix that? Well, you go back, you learn, you do some more drills,
Yeah.
you correct it. Versus I'm a loser. Well, that's inherently who you are. You can't do anything to fix that. And so we've got to change how we talk about ourselves.
Yeah.
And so for me with coaching, mine was I'm a coach. Well, when we start losing, then all of a sudden that means I'm not as valuable. That
Right.
means that I don't matter as much, that I could be, tossed to the side personally, me as a whole person. And that's not true. I could lose a coaching job, but that doesn't mean that I'm less valuable. And so we got to be careful of how we identify ourselves.
Yeah. And getting back into the whole conversation of just, who your identity is. So I grew up Southern Indiana resident, played the athletics, basketball was the primary sport. I did love football. I wish Christian Academy had a football team. Um, I always had like this misconception that like public schools just had these daunting athletes, and I was just not that guy to be able to go to a public school and like stand out. And who knows, whatever. But there in itself is that element of like a lack of confidence. Um, I can tell you on my first day at a local school, Christian Academy, first grade, walk in somewhere middle through maybe after the semester, walk in my head, I just kept my head down because I was just like, you know what I mean? I wasn't confident in who I was.
Yeah.
And that carried on to sports, you know what I mean? And just many different, now soccer. I played soccer, and that was the most fun I ever had playing a sport, I believe. Just not knowing what I'm doing and just being out
Yeah.
there, just relying on athletic ability, but basketball especially was just kind of like I always wanted to make the right basketball play. And sometimes the right basketball play was me shooting, but I didn't want to risk like missing or like
Yeah.
not being able to fulfill that.
Well,
And
you mentioned it there, and real quick, this is something I work with athletes. Is soccer was so much fun for you because you didn't have expectations
mhm,
going into it,
mhm,
and where basketball you had these expectations, but your expectations were outcome based.
yeah,
And so this is where I try to work with athletes on some stuff. I'm like, when we put our expectations in how many points we score, whether we win or lose, things like that, like we can't control the outcome. If we could control outcomes, we would win every single time that we play,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But we can't control it. But the things that we can control are things like our attitude, our positive, like how we talk to ourselves. We
mhm,
can control, our body language. We can control our concentration and focus. Like those are within our control. And so what I try to tell athletes is like put your expectations in those things. Like I expect to have a good attitude, no matter what my
yeah,
circumstances, no
yeah,
matter what my outcome is. Like I expect to keep a good positive body language and stand tall no matter what's going on
mhm,
around me. Like
mhm,
we can control those things and then let the outcomes, let those be the goals. Like, hey, we want to achieve these. We understand there's a possibility we may fall short, but I don't expect to. If we change our expectations to what we can control about ourselves, to me, I work with athletes on trying to shift that,
yeah,
and I think that takes a lot of pressure off of whether we win or lose. And really, when we take the pressure off of win or losing, and we're just having fun and relaxed and trusting our training, what ends up happening? We end up winning more,
yeah,
right?
right,
And,
exactly.
and so, but anyway, you made a point there, and I kind of heard that verbiage, and that's an often exactly what you said and how you were feeling.
Mhm.
That is 90% of athletes that I work with,
Oh
so
yeah.
are on that same way. So I just want to touch on that because I think that'll speak to a lot of people that hear this.
Oh, I sure, we talked, the audience isn't just athletes, the audience isn't just parents, the audience is, all athletes, players, or well, athletes and players, athletes, parents, teachers, and they'll get into some dialogue about that later on, but just we want everyone who whether you played going back. I remember I had the thought at one point in time, like, man, sometimes I wish I didn't play sports and I wish I was like musically inclined and was like deep into piano or like maybe I was like the best pianist in our school and I went to these, you know what I mean? Just because it was like sometimes it just felt like again going back to identity, like Chris was the senior superlative was most athletic, Chris Carruthers. You know what I mean? Not that like it's nothing to brag about because I'm far from that these days, but um it becomes so easy to get infatuated with what you do and how that becomes your identity versus like who are you? You know what I mean? And I kind of want you to dive into that. How do you pull out, when you're talking to an athlete who's going through a slump, maybe they've been injured or, or coming off an injury or they're coming off of something. How do you like regain that focus of who their identity is and just kind of redirect them onto their path there?
Yeah. So I'll go back to my story a little bit, where I was talking about basketball and it not being, the savior that I thought it would be. So for me, what I learned, is that, again, that was just something that I was doing, and I thought my saving grace was going to be in my performance, and that's when I really, really, truly came to understand and know Jesus Christ, and just know who I am in Him. And that was a freeing experience for me.
Mhm.
So from a spiritual side, I think this is interesting. When we talk about God creating the earth, right? The sixth day, He created man, He created
Mhm.
woman, and then on the seventh day, He rested. But if you look at it from man and woman's perspective, they were created, and what did God do? What did He require them to do on their first day? Rest.
Yeah.
So he didn't create us to right away get to work. He created us to find our identity in Him.
Yeah.
And when I understood that, and I learned that, like, that's when I felt that I could move away from basketball.
Right.
I didn't need, like, I got to a point with basketball where it's like, I have to have this because I don't know who I am without it.
Yeah.
To then understand the other side of it, the bigger picture of it, to go, okay, I can move away from basketball. Like, I don't have to have it. And so a lot of times with athletes, when I work with them, like you mentioned, like, man, I wish I was great at playing piano and doing some other stuff like that. It's like, I talk to athletes, and they're playing these sports, and they put so much pressure on themselves. And then I start getting into conversations, like asking the why. Like, why do you play softball? Why do you play baseball?
Mhm.
And they're like, well, I want to win. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go a little bit deeper in that. So I kind of have like a list of questions. Like, this might be helpful. And you, like, anyone listening to this, you can take yourself through this list of questions. You ask yourself, like, what do I want? And
Mhm.
you might say, well, I want to win. And you say, okay, well, the next question is, okay, what would that do for you? And then it goes higher level thinking. So this would be a better example. I was working with a guy with a business one time, and I asked him, so what do you want? And he said, well, I want more money. And I said, why do you want more money? So the next question, why do you want more money? Well, I want more money, so that I can be able to do more with my family. Okay. Then the next question, what would that do for you? Well, if I had more time with my family, I'd have a little bit more freedom. And so anyway, then the next question, okay, well, why do you want that? What would that do for you? Why do you want that?
Mhm.
What would that? So you keep going. Those two questions after you ask, what do you want? What do you want? Why? What would that? Why do you want it? What would that do for you? Why do you want it? What would you do for it? So eventually, he said we got to the point at the very top. He kind of kept repeating himself, so we knew we kind of hit that limit.
Mhm.
And he just said, he said, I just want to know that I matter. I
Wow.
just want to know that I matter, that I'm important. And I said, okay. And I said, so what's happening here is you are equating the more money I have, the more that I matter. You don't
Mhm.
really want more money. You just think that money is the thing that's going to make you matter more.
Yeah.
And so we reframed it, and we were like, okay, so what if you went to your clients and you went above and beyond for them, and you just cared about them, and you were selling to them because you legitimately knew that your product or service would help them achieve or have a better life? Do you think you would matter more to those people?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, absolutely. And I was like, and then what would they give you more of? And he was like, money. And I was like, exactly. You see, we oftentimes we think the thing that we want is going to fix that deeper drive that we have,
Mhm.
but it's actually, how do we satisfy that deeper drive? And then when we do that, a lot of times we end up getting the things that we want. And
Yeah.
that deeper drive is always about helping. Always, it's just ingrained in us about helping others in some form or fashion.
You said something that was just so powerful. It's been a little bit since you said it, but you know, God created us to find our identity in Him.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said it, and I was just like, oh wow, like that is a lesson that, like, that's my lesson today. Like, thank you for that. But so often, like, it's just you seek and seek, what is my identity? Who am I going to be? What am I going to do? This week it's like, hey, I'm this, next week it's like, oh, well, I'm the athlete of the week, but just find being able to say, God, thank you for the success or thank you for the failures. I put my trust in you. Lead
Mhm.
me and guide me every step of the way. Um, and there's that requires a level of humility. But no, I just wanted to shine a moment on that just because again, I thought it was just so, like I said, powerful because it is true. And there's so much like, whether the people watching or listening are believers or they're not believers, there is some factual um evidence that if you believe, whether it's in the Lord Savior Jesus Christ or you believe in a spiritual tree or I'm looking at a mailbox here out of my window, but you just having that element of spirituality in your life to where you're believing, um, it does impact your mental health. It does, you kind of live for said mailbox, said Savior, Lord and Savior, or that higher power, and so um yeah, again, I just thought that was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Well, I think it's the purpose behind it. When we understand, I just did a kind of a video. I have a little social media series I do with FCA, and the takeaway from it recently was that, and I believe this about every single person on the face of the earth, that we were all created on purpose for a purpose.
Mm,
And I don't want people listening to this to lose that. Like, there's a lot of times we can wake up and go, why am I here? Why do I matter? And that self-talk, that belief about ourselves, is a dangerous one.
yeah,
But when we understand that we were created on purpose for a purpose, then we wake up every morning with a mission in mind moving forward. We're not thinking about just ourselves and, oh, how bad I have it and things like that. But it's like, no, I'm here for a reason, and I need to get moving, and I need to be moving forward, understanding that I've got things to accomplish
yeah,
for a bigger purpose.
that's good. That's good. What pressures do athletes and young people face today?
Man, where to start? So social media,
Yeah,
is
jump in.
social media is kind of the obvious one. It's almost kind of cliche at this point. But I worked with an athlete not long ago, and I asked this athlete, I said, how do you evaluate and judge your performance? And they said, well, I get on social media and I see what people are saying.
Mm,
And so we have a high school athlete that determines how well or poorly they played based on what people on social media are saying about them. They could have played the greatest game. They could have put in so much work that week. They may not have had the stats that they want to have, but they could have executed the things that they were working on and doing exactly what coach said. And some, you know, goofball on social media could be like, oh, I can't believe they did this, this, and this. And this high school student is literally reading that and going, well, I guess that negates everything that I've done.
right, right.
And that's a shame. And it could be the other way too. I mean, somebody could go out and play terrible and think they're all that because social media is telling them. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. And we know as coaches that happens too. and
Yeah, yeah, right.
yeah, and so that's one. I see that oftentimes with athletes, and then just the comparison game. We get on social media and we see how great that somebody's doing, or this other baseball player that's playing travel ball. Well, they just won a world championship belt and this big fake ring, in some tournament that they really didn't win, but they just paid a little extra money, and because everybody gives out the rings and the belts and the
Yeah,
trophies and
yeah,
all that
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
now. But we see that, especially young people, they see that and they're like, well, why did they get one and I didn't get one and I have less than and things like that. And so that's a big one to try to overcome, is to try to get athletes to reframe how they evaluate themselves, not based on how they're compared to others, but how they compare to themselves yesterday.
Yeah.
Like that's your only, like at the end of the day, for all of us, that is our only competition when it comes to sports, is am I better than I was yesterday? Because I ask athletes, every single one of them, you were this way growing up, I was this way growing up. Can you name one person that's in your group that you think they're better than you, and if you were to beat them, it would be a big deal to you? And they're like, oh yeah, for sure. And I said, can you name one person in your group, like friend group, that if they beat you in a sport, you would be embarrassed because you know you're better than them? And oh yeah. And we compare ourselves to those people. But what happens is, like, especially in Southern Indiana, you get in some small communities.
What? Small communities, Southern Indiana?
Yeah. And you get, Joe, beat Bob. And now everybody thinks Joe is the best athlete in the entire world because he beat Bob, because in our community, Bob was the best athlete. But we're missing like this whole big world out there. And it's like, no, you're not even close to like being anywhere, good enough to go to the next level or whatever it might be. Like I see that happen a lot, especially in our area. And at the end of the day, like that doesn't, like, who cares? Like that you go outside of your community, like nobody cares. It doesn't matter.
Right.
What matters is, are you better today than the version of you from yesterday? Right. And if you keep heading in that direction, like that's where you trust the process over time, that it'll take you where you may want to go one day.
Yeah. And that's interesting you say that, because there's a couple ways I want to go with this, and I'm gonna make some notes because I have a tendency to get talking about something and then I completely forget what I was saying, and then really hope that it comes back, and it never does. Um, I guess I'll start here with what I just wrote down. Oh, actually, no, I won't. I won't. I remember where I was going. Um, it's so interesting that like everything that we see today is just you take what you just said, and it is living without instant gratification to an extent, right? To sum things up, it is learning to live without instant gratification.
Yeah.
Can you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. It's harder and harder in our world today.
Well, and that's where I'm going. Like it is insane. And maybe this is episode one, maybe episode two will be about spiritual warfare and athletes, but it's crazy to think about, like, just the influence and just how much of it is about me, now, and it's just it's unreal. Like it as I'm only 32, be 33 in a couple months. Speaking of which, happy birthday,
Thank you.
belated birthday.
Appreciate it.
For all of our fans listening out there, just make sure you wish Andrew a happy birthday. No, but
Thank you.
like I feel like an old head for saying that, or unk, as the kids say these days. Like, but it's crazy. You sit back and you just watch like the media, and you watch this and you watch that, and it's all about like, what can you do right now? What can you have right now? What can you get right now? And as it's just crazy. And it's when we talk about just being able to survive in this day and age, you have to have that, like, that focus on, like, what did I do yesterday that propelled me to be great today? Or like, how can I continue to improve? And it's just so hard to kind of keep that focus with 15, 16, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds.
Can I give them a tool real quick that they
Oh,
could use
please,
for that?
please, please.
So one thing I try to get my athletes to use is I call it well, better, how. And so what it is at the end of the day or after practice or a game or whatever it is, write down 3 things that you did well. Because oftentimes, like we'll leave and we can name 500 things we did wrong, but
Mhm.
name 3 things you did well. Then one thing that you could do better, and then one way that the how are you going to do it better tomorrow? And so that ensures that tomorrow, like it does a couple things. One, it gives us confidence because it's like we can look back and say, hey, I did do 3 things well. So that's great. Like that's a great mental health tool to be able to use. What's one thing I could do better? So forget all the 500 things we could do better. Let's just focus on one. And then by answering the question, how, now I have a plan to go into tomorrow. And I think that gives us a lot of confidence and it gives us, allows us to be able to relax a little bit because it's like, okay, I got a plan. Like that's part of half of it. I know for me, whenever I was 18, 19 years old, and it's like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Like, what's my future going to look like? And when you don't know, it's scary.
Mhm.
And that can create some panic and anxiety and things like that. And so just by every day, just being like, how am I going to improve on this tomorrow? And having just a plan of action, a plan of attack, like that gives you the confidence to step into tomorrow and the clarity. And I love this quote, where there's clarity, there's confidence.
Oh yeah.
And it's just the clarity to
Yeah.
step into tomorrow to be like, okay, I've got a plan of attack. And so anyway, that tool is one I use with athletes, but that can be used with just everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. That is great. Um, Mental health and warning signs, obviously this I think this had been manifesting in the higher ups for a bit. I hate that it took tragedy
Mm.
to kind of bring it to fruition, but man, this has been great, and part two coming soon. Stay tuned. But no, what signs indicate someone might be struggling?
Well, I'll preface with this. My background or my certification is mental performance. It's more about mindset than it is necessarily like I'm not a counselor, not a therapist.
Hmm.
So I'm not as well versed and trained in that necessarily. I could tell you when it, comes to sports and things like that, but I just know from my training being in schools for years, a lot of it is, when somebody starts to kind of get quiet, they separate themselves a little bit. You don't hear from them as much. Like those are the times when you really got to check in on them,
Yeah.
and really reach out and make sure you're there with them. Um, the self-talk part is a lot of it. So like if you really just listen to people, what are those messages? What are those things that they're saying? Are they beating themselves up? Are they tearing themselves down constantly? Because that's going to just wear you out over time. And do you hear your friends, saying that kind of stuff, or some of it's just getting some anxiety, like performance anxiety and things like that. Like you got a test coming up at school, and it's like you're just kind of getting to the point where you're like, I don't even know if I can take this test because there's so much pressure on it.
Right.
And so those are all kind of like signs to look out for. But I don't want, like I said, I don't want to speak too much in depth beyond just that. But I could tell you like some of the warning signs as far as when it comes to like actual performance
Yeah. Yeah.
that comes with it. Yeah.
No, and you've been in the classroom. I've been in the classroom. You know, uh, I've been. It's. I mean, you hit it. When they start to like, it is crazy to know that you think about. I haven't been directly close with anyone who has been struggling, and then you wake up the next day and they're not. They've decided to make a decision with their life that is not great. Um, I but I remember thinking, in high school, I wanted to impact every single person I came in contact with in a positive
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
And I thought like, that that might just be holding the door for someone, just giving someone a smile. giving a wink to an attractive lady. No, I'm kidding.
Was that for them or you?
But no, but just finding something that I can do to just put a smile on someone's face, because you really never know. And I think you indicated some clear signs. We also do a QPR gatekeeper. I'm butchering it, but we do a training that is kind of geared around like breaking down that barrier to have those conversations when someone's going through something, or just being able to talk about like, hey, Andrew, I haven't seen you in a couple days. Are you doing all right? You know what I mean? Or your trash can is sitting out here on the corner for 3 weeks. What's going on? So it helps you have those, one, have an eye out for those things, and two, have the confidence to go in and say like, hey, are you okay? You know, and so I think that's very important. I mean, here in there was we'll talk about something after this, but you just never know. We'll take that part offline. But
Well, I'll say this is a lot of times we don't want to say anything because of the fear of it being awkward.
yeah.
I heard Kobe Bryant one time. He told a story. He said, if I'm sitting at a restaurant and I got a big old thing of like parsley in my teeth and
Mhm.
I'm sitting across from somebody, he was like, do you want that person sitting across from you to tell you that you got that parsley in your teeth? And even though it might be awkward for just a moment because they don't want to say it, but would you rather them tell you so you can get it out, or would you rather sit there for the next hour looking like an idiot because they're too
Yeah.
afraid of it being awkward to tell you?
Mhm.
And so I love that story because it's like it's only awkward in the moment, but ultimately it's for the betterment of somebody.
Yeah.
So you got to get over the awkwardness, and it's hard. It's not easy, but you got to get over the awkwardness sometimes.
Do you remember it was so like it may have been and when I say a couple years, it may have been like 7 or 8 years, but there was a seize the awkward movement. Um just again, it's like having being able to just it was talking about like taking that awkwardness and owning it and having that tough conversation. But it was it was just always it was an awkward commercial to watch, but because they're so awkward in the commercial, but
Yeah,
then it's like, okay, like I see what you're trying to do on this side of things, like, okay,
yeah.
okay. But yeah, check out Seize the Awkward. But just it's important, and it really is. It really is. There's so much. One of my favorite things to do as a coach, and I used to love to do it as a teacher. I just make things awkward for kids,
Mm-hmm.
and just like watch them just not know what to do with themselves.
Right.
And it's like you kind of, hey, stop fidgeting, stop doing this, stop right here, front and center.
Yeah.
My dad used to be like, hey, front and center, right here. If I wanted to go somewhere, and I would try to pace around and avoid the eye contact and awkwardness. So I'd do that with them, and they'd fidget and stuff. It's like, no, no, say that one more time. But yeah, no, it really is crazy just to think about like how much of it comes down to like, do you want to look like an idiot with the parsley in your teeth, or do you want like I'm gonna tell you, if you got something in your teeth, because I'd want you to do the same for me.
Right.
Um, how can individuals separate identity from performance? I know we kind of talked about it.
Yeah. Um, One thing I think that's really good to do. I was working with an athlete recently. He's a really good young golfer, and we haven't talked much about the parent side of it, but the mom reached out to me, and I was impressed. And she reached out to me, and she said, "I want you talk with him because she said, I know he's really good and everybody's talking and hyping him up so much about his golf game. But I want him to know that he's more than that. And I don't want him just to get caught in just being just a golfer.
Yeah.
And so we did a session where I was like, hey, I want you to write down all the things that make you you. And so it's like, he's not just a golfer, he's a friend, he's a son, he's a brother, he's a student. And so one thing that we try to do is we look at like all these different aspects of what makes a person who they are. And so oftentimes we just think like, I'm just this, I'm just an athlete. He's a boyfriend. Like there's all these different aspects. So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, is I guess you could look at it that way.
Yeah.
So just asking that question. And then also the other question to ask is like, what makes me me? What do I enjoy doing? What passions do I have? What pursuits do I have? What do I think is funny? All that kind of stuff. And then when we go deeper into that, it's like, man, I've got all these different roles that I play in my life. I've got all these different things that I'm passionate, that I like, that I don't like, and it allows them to see themselves as the whole person. And their performance in sports is just one little tiny part of it. And it's like, okay, if I took sports out of that,
Yeah.
do you still have the same passions?
Right.
Do you still like the same things? Do you
Yeah.
still play these other roles in your life?
Yeah.
Like you can move, sports out of that and plug in, like you said, being a piano player in there. And Chris
Yeah.
Carruthers is still Chris Carruthers, whether he's an athlete or whether he's a piano player, you're still that whole person that you were created to be. And so just going through that process and just kind of zooming out and viewing it from a different perspective.
Yeah. That's again, that's wild because it's just so easy to, yeah, what you sometimes you look at what your identity is and you think about like what could make, you know, I made the joke the other day. I was getting my hair cut and he was asking, my barber was asking, how's it going? And I was like, man, I'm just trying to figure out what to do with my life because basketball season's over. And I just kind of making the joke that it's depression's not a joke. But it's just I during the season you become so focused and hyper fixated on being the coach, being a coach. Like like you said earlier, I'm a coach. I'm a coach. I'm a coach. That's all I am. I'm a coach, man. I coach I coach basketball, I coach in the office, I coach on the streets, I coach driving my car, don't let me be a passenger driver because I'm coaching how but when oftentimes when you sit back and you have that time to like disassociate yourself from that identity, you realize like, oh wow, like I'm a son, like you said, or I'm an employee, or I'm a degenerate who likes to stay up late and eat candy. No, I'm just
Yeah.
just kidding. Just kidding. But no, you really find out like you find out so much and man, like to anyone listening, man, I hope you follow the exercises, even if whether you're an athlete or a teacher or a professional, um, business professional. I hope you find like that time to have that reflection and just really, you know, think about who you are because it's important. It's important to do. And if it's so easy to get caught up in the everyday ebbs and flows of what hat you have to wear the most often. But like, even though you're wearing it 17 out of the 24 hours a day, that doesn't make you that. You can still find solitude and just solace and who and what you want. And so I that was a great you did good there. I like what you had to say there.
I'm glad. No, it's Well, so like personal story for me where I did this. So I did some research. I wanted to learn like what the name, my last name Grantz, like where's it from and what does it mean? So it's a German name and it means large man. And so it's like, which is like, I'm 6'4", my dad's 6'4", got an uncle at 6'9". So it's like, yeah, it's true. And but a couple of years ago, just talking about identity, I was 40 pounds overweight. And I was in my head, I'm like, well, my last name means large man. Of course I'm gonna like I'm big. Like that's just here's the reality. I wasn't exercising. I was eating fast food every other day. I was, I was going back for second and thirds for dessert. And I wasn't being healthy. I wasn't doing anything. But because of the identity that of like, oh, well, this is just like my heritage. This is like who I like, my name means this is just how I'm gonna be. And doing some of the identity training that I was with some of the athletes, I had I caught myself and I was like, I'm not going to be this way. Well, that, and also I had a really scary dream. I believe it was by God's grace, but I had a scary dream because I was having children. I got 3 now. And I had this dream because I was being unhealthy, that I had a heart attack and I wasn't able to raise my kids. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night. I can still remember it very vividly. Just freaked out. And I was like, I got to get my act together. So it's like, I'm just going to start working out. I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to do those things. And, here I am 2 years later and I'm down 40 pounds. I'm 37 and I'm in better shape than I was when I was 21, 22.
Yeah.
And I was like, but the thing that was keeping me from that was the identity. Like I was telling myself this story in my head that I could believe to give myself the excuse to eat poorly and to not exercise. And I had to change that identity about myself to do something about it. And that's the trap that we can fall in when we start believing those stories about ourselves and what's not true.
Well, one I had to write it down because again, I'll forget, but how many times, what I wrote down is how many times, like, it'd be interesting to look at the number of times identities are defined by others or something somebody else says versus like, hey, I could have been that like liberal arts dancing kid, but I thought like someone said, Chris, you can jump high and you're fast, you are athlete. But how many times like do you look at something or I mean just kind of similar to you looked up your name and thought that's what I am, that's what I'm supposed to be, like,
I not to get too preachy, but
get preachy.
If you look at examples in the Bible, everybody's familiar with David and Goliath, the story of David. So David ends up becoming king of Israel. Before David ever slayed Goliath, before David ever became king, God anointed him. Like God told him before any of that happened that you will be king one day of Israel, decades before it happened. If you go to the New Testament, Jesus, before he ever performs a miracle, when he's baptized, the heavens open up and God says, this is my son who I'm well pleased. Jesus had never performed a miracle at that point, and God is already speaking it into existence for him. And there's just story after story after story of that in the Bible. Moses, when he's in the wilderness, God said, you're going to be the one that frees my people. And Moses is like, but I have a speech impediment. Like I'm slow of speech. Like, how am I going to go talk to Pharaoh? And God's like, no, I'm calling, like, you're going to do it. And so I think and I'm learning this as I'm getting older and I have kids myself. There is so much power in speaking truth and speaking life into people, not waiting for them to prove it, but helping them understand that they're already proven through Christ. Speaking that into them beforehand, and people will follow that path that you laid out in front of them. I just think there's so much power in that.
Oh yeah. And that is man, you're on fire today. Didn't know we were getting church today, Ooh. On a Friday morning. No, but it just you mentioned something just about like you don't even like it's already been ordained, you know. Just it kind of goes to show you the power of or the good Lord, you know what I mean? But yeah, no, that's so true. It's so true. Um Going to jump into a segment here. Call it rapid fire. Um, Sponsored by. No, I'm just kidding. We'll speak it into existence. We'll get a
There you
sponsorship
go.
for
That's
the
right.
rapid fire section here. One thing every athlete should hear. I should have put a 24-second clock with it being more
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
shot
No,
clock.
that's a deep one. Oh, let's go based on what we've said today.
Yeah,
The one thing every athlete should hear is that who you are is not what you do, and what you
yeah,
do is not who you are. Those two things are separate.
yeah. Okay, 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 okay. I like that. I like that. Put that on a quote card, please. One thing parents get wrong.
Hmm.
Now, as a coach, we have a million answers for this, but
Yeah, you want to go down this road. I'm glad it's rapid fire.
yeah.
Yeah.
24
No,
seconds.
I would say no. The thing that I see a lot of parents gets wrong is they put too much emphasis on outcomes.
Mhm.
I think when it comes especially to sports, we should be utilizing sports for the life lessons that it teaches. I think
Yeah,
as parents, and I'm going to try to do this with my kids, is like, what's the life lesson to be garnered from practice today? Like,
yeah.
it'd be great if you could make a shot, but what did you learn about in your pursuit of improving your jump shot?
Yeah, yeah.
How can you take what you learned and apply that to the rest of your life?
Any day now, it'd be cool if you just put one in the.
Right.
You've gone 72 days and you still can't. No.
Right.
That's-
Yeah.
Oh man. And just to that point, we'll take a break out of rapid fire for just a second. Just when you look at just all of the pressures, even as they infiltrate the high school level, there's high schoolers now who have the opportunity to earn NIL dollars.
Mm.
And you look at these college kids who are dude, if I were 18 or 19, 20, 21,
Hmm.
I was one of those younger kids. So I graduated my going into my senior year, I was 21.
Hmm.
But if I had anything more than the $10 an hour I was making at this what was it was a pet daycare. Um Working like 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week. If I had any more money than that, dude, I don't know if I would be here,
Yeah.
and it's just crazy that we sit here and wonder why kids, athletes, I say kids,
Hmm.
unk, but no, you sit here and you wonder why these kids are, you don't wonder, I mean, it's kind of written on the wall, like, man, so much, that's more money than anyone can fathom. Like,
Yeah.
and you expect them to be serious about going to geometry class on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. Like, come on now.
We
You
get
know?
we get so we get so wrapped up in getting the outcome. And you mentioned it earlier. You're talking to Keith Miller after you won state, and you're like, man, we kind of had this drop, and everybody
Mhm.
feels like the beautiful thing is about a goal is not achieving the goal. The beautiful thing about a goal is who you have to become in the process of achieving
Mhm.
that goal. And so that's exactly like you wouldn't be where you are right now if you didn't have to go through the process of living on a little
Mhm.
to develop that drive inside of you to want
Right.
to help others and benefit. And you wouldn't be there without the process refining you.
Oh yeah.
And we're so often like with the NIL, like, I want the money now, I want this outcome now. And it's like, okay, you'll get it, but is anything really gonna, it's like the people that win the lottery, right? Like the majority of people that win the lottery and win millions of dollars go bankrupt within, whatever
Mhm.
it is, like a couple of years or whatever.
Yeah.
And the reason is because they don't change. They have more money, but who they are and like their spending habits and things like that, like it doesn't change.
Right.
You have to go through the refining process.
Oh yeah. Dude, I saw on that topic, a lighter note. I saw I saw a video the other day where it's like, if I win the lottery, there will be signs. And he's like, I'm not going to go buy a new house. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the DMV and I'm going to pay my car registration. That's 2 years late. And then and then I'm going to get my insurance straightened out. And he's like, if I win the lottery, I'm just going to be a law-abiding citizen.
Yeah.
It was funny because it's like, ah, dang, dude,
Yeah.
being that is expensive for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but anyhow, next question. One daily habit that would improve your mental health.
Gratitude. I'm just overwhelmed and blown away by the athletes that I've worked with when we start establishing gratitude practices, the
Mhm.
difference that it makes. Gratitude and not complaining. So
Yeah,
I challenge every athlete that every day they start a gratitude journal. They write down one thing every morning, and they're never allowed to repeat the same thing.
yeah,
And be very specific. So don't say like, oh, I love my mom. No,
yeah,
I love my mom's dinner that she makes because this is really good, and I know she takes time to do
right,
that for me.
right.
So and then the challenge is like it's easy at first, but then you go through like a month of it, and you're like,
Mhm.
man, how can I not repeat it?
Yeah,
So you have to
yeah.
start really diving deeper, and you have to really start looking for what you're thankful for, and then all of a sudden you're training your brain to look for things that are going your way that you never noticed before, and you will be amazed at how much is actually going your way.
That is, I remember, man, I learned that lesson somewhere between high school and college. It may have been early on in college. If it was in college, I was at home. I went to church on a Sunday morning with the family, and the lesson was all about gratitude. And man, like it literally brought me to tears just because it was like, when you stop and you reflect about where you are, um, you you just realize the blessings and blessings and blessings that and just it's man, for that that was the definition of rapid fire right there. Ask the question, not even finish the question, the inflection of the question mark, and you're like gratitude. But no, gratitude, man. It's so humbling when you just sit back and think about, all the things all the blessings you have, all the people in your life. You know, that was strong. That was strong. Um, what does a strong mind actually mean?
Mm. I told somebody this recently. I wish that we would switch the phrase from mental health to mental fitness.
Yeah.
Um, the reason why is because when we say mental health, we tend to think like we're either healthy or unhealthy,
Hmm.
or if we're not healthy, then that must mean we're sick.
Hmm.
And that's not a great way to kind of think of ourselves. But when we think of it as fitness, we can think, well, there's different levels of fitness. I could
Yeah.
be in great shape. I could maybe not be in the best shape right now, but I can get in shape, right?
Hmm.
So when we talk about mental fitness, it's I just like that phrase more. It gives us the opportunity to know that like we are in control of our mindset. There's a great story. I know it's rapid fire. Sorry, but
No, 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 no. This is the last question on rapid fire.
there's a great story about a guy named Viktor Frankl. He was a Jewish Austrian Jew back during World War II, and just got married, got taken to a concentration camp. Nazis came in, got him, got his wife, got his parents, split them all up. And he's going through concentration camp, seeing like the worst of humanity, being treated like completely awful. And he realized that like the Nazis, they could take my clothes, they could take my food, they could take my sleep, they could take my wife, they could take my parents. Heck, they could even take my life. Like I don't even control that.
Yeah.
But he was like, the one thing that they cannot take, the one thing they can't touch, and he called it the last of the human freedoms, is my attitude. He's like, they can do whatever they want to me, or the people around me, and they can never change my attitude towards that. Like they have no control over that at all. And I just think that's powerful, to when we really look at that, it's like, there's a lot of things in our life that are outside our control, but the one freedom that God really gives us is how we view those things and the attitudes we take towards it.
Dude, that immediately reminded me of the story of Job. Just God let, everything happen to him. And Job still was Job, man, that was talk about powerful. That's what we'll caption this, the title of this video, powerful. Pastor Andrew Grant.
No,
no, I had another question. Oh, was Helen Keller actually blind? No, I'm just kidding. No. If you can take one thing, we'll close here. I know I got to get to the office and tell the boss how much fun I had today. But if you can take one thing today, take away one thing, what would you, if there's one message you want people to hear, whether it's athletes, parents, teachers, school administrators, whoever's listening, what would it be?
You are here on purpose for a purpose. To remember that after God created humanity, the first thing that humans did was they rested. Yeah. They understood that they were created out of love, and out of that love, they wanted to work, and because God calls us to work, but He didn't create us to perform for Him. He created us out of love, and out of that love, we get to perform.
Right.
And so, shifting that mindset for our athletes, that you are so much more than your performance. And your performance is just something in your sport, or even for kids in school, or even for adults at work, that your performance is just something that you get to do because you understand that you were created out of love and that you're here for a purpose, on purpose for a purpose.
Oh yeah. That's the note that I had. Excuse me. You're not your stats, you're not your grades, you're not your job title or your last performance. Like you are what you're created to be, and that's a disciple, a child of God. And we're speaking the same language here, in that. So there's I won't elaborate, but those things, they don't define you, and when we understand that, we don't just perform better, we live better. You know what I mean? And so that's man, we talked about this for a couple weeks. We finally made it happen. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you for listening to the Mindset Huddle podcast. We hope this episode encouraged you. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and share it with someone who could benefit. We'll see you next time.